Hi, I'm Guenther Steiner. Today I will talk about the greatest season of Formula One of all times. In its 75-year history, Formula One has had some incredible seasons. There was the drama of Lewis Hamilton's last moment win in 2008 or the movie-inspiring duel between James Hunt and Niki Lauda in 1976. But when it comes to the best ever, with its unpredictability until the very last, it's hard to look past 2012. Going into the season, there were 5 realistic challengers for the driver's title. 4 of them had won it before, and with Michael Schumacher in his last season in Formula One and Kimi Räikkönen making a comeback after a 2-year stint in rallying, there were 6 world champions on the grid, making it arguably the most talented field of all time. McLaren had looked the most impressive in pre-season and started the season with a front row lockout in Australia. Jenson Button leapfrogged Lewis Hamilton to take the win, but both drivers' title credentials were clear. Ferrari, on the other hand, looked set to struggle. Their F2012 car had issues with speed, track instability and traction in pre-season, but due to Fernando Alonso's mastery of wet conditions, they were able to secure victory in Malaysia. At the time, Mercedes were still relatively new after their return to F1, so it was a surprise to see Nico Rosberg claim their first win since 1955 in China in race 3. Sebastian Vettel's win in Bahrain was a little more expected though. Probably the biggest shock of the season came when Pastor Maldonado then achieved a win in Spain in round 5. The Venezuelan had only registered 1 point in Formula One before 2012, but after a fuel error from Hamilton had handed him pole position, a combination of superb team strategy and gutsy driving helped him secure Williams' first win since 2004. Mark Webber then won in Monaco before Hamilton claimed victory in Canada to give us 7 different race winners in the first 7 races. It was the first time in history this had happened. Unsurprisingly, the standings were tight, but it seemed like Hamilton, Alonso and Vettel were breaking away as the real contenders. Alonso began building a gap with 2 wins in the next 4 races, but Hamilton began to be plagued by reliability issues. He won in Hungary and Italy, but suffered 5 retirements in the final 10 races of the season, and he fell away from title contention. All the while, there were murmurings of his discontent at McLaren, and not long after retiring from the Singapore Grand Prix due to a gearbox issue, it was confirmed that he would be moving to Mercedes in 2013. Meanwhile, that race was the first of 4 consecutive wins for Vettel, who had hit form at the right time to open up a 13-point lead. These wins had been smooth sailing, but he faced his biggest test in Abu Dhabi. After qualifying 3rd, Vettel was penalized for a fuel error and made to start at the back of the grid on a track where it is notoriously difficult to overtake. Red Bull took the decision to start Vettel from the pits so they could modify his car to overtake better, and despite an early tire problem, the gamble paid off as he miraculously finished 3rd. Alonso could only manage a 2nd-placed finish, meaning he could only reduce the gap by 3 points. Kimi Räikkönen won the race, but he could no longer mathematically win the title, and as the final 2 races approached, it was going to be a straight shootout between Alonso and Vettel. Vettel did have the chance to wrap the title up in the penultimate race in Texas, and when Alonso qualified in 8th, that looked like a real possibility. But Ferrari took the decision to break the seal in the gearbox of his teammate Felipe Massa, who had qualified in 7th, meaning the Brazilian would receive a 5-place grid penalty. Not only did this move Alonso up into 7th, it also gave him the superior racing line on this new track. Vettel meanwhile came 2nd, meaning he had a 13-point lead. After a season unlike any other, it was all going to come down to the final race in Brazil. Vettel was the clear favorite to win the title, particularly after he had qualified in 4th and Alonso had only come 8th. The contest looked like it could be over before it had even begun, but a season like this was never going to give us such a predictable final. Vettel got off to a nightmare start and spun on the first corner after contact. The damage was not enough to put him out of the race entirely, but he was now at the back of the grid. Alonso, meanwhile, had jumped up to 4th place and was now unexpectedly favourite to win. Miraculously, though, Vettel began climbing up the pack, and by lap 23 he was only one behind Alonso in 5th. But after a safety car, the dry conditions began to expose the damage on his car, and Vettel once again dropped back. At this point he opted to pit and stay on the slick tires, but within minutes of him re-entering the track it had begun raining. Vettel came back in to change again, but to add to the drama, his radio stopped working and his Red Bull team did not receive his message that he had intended to pit, causing another delay that saw him to fall to 7th. Alonso, meanwhile, was up in 2nd and just one place away from regaining the lead in the championship. But while he chased race leader Jenson Button, Michael Schumacher, on his last race in Formula 1, decided to let his compatriot Vettel pass into 6th place. Alonso could still have won the title if he had overtaken Button, but a crash by Paul Di Resta meant that the race finished under a safety car. It was devastating for Alonso, who had got the absolute maximum out of his Ferrari, but it was Vettel who was crowned champion in the greatest Formula 1 season of all time.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to the best team of sports writers, reporters, and analysts in the world, offering exclusive stories and unrivaled insight. You can try The Athletic for free for 30 days by clicking the link in the description.